Another thing that's quite cool is if we go over some of the initial parts of your early career when the Heroic team first came along, and if people don't know, this is when the brand Heroic was first known. It was formed as a squad. Obviously, there was some like behind the scenes things where you might know some of the people who formed other teams, etc. But that's all separate now, and this is years ago. When this squad was first formed, though, funnily enough, it was already a team that very quickly became known for having young, good Danish players. But there's actually a cool angle now, which is aged like fine wine, which is the team had both Snappy, who now this year is mega relevant again, and of course gla1ve in the team. So actually, let me ask about these guys. So let me start with the gla1ve angle. One thing that I think has always been missed by a lot of fans, because fans now will just know Astralis gla1ve and they'll know he won the 4 majors and he's the GOAT, the simple narratives everyone knows. I think the detail they often miss, Valde, is he actually wasn't the IGL in this team. He was the secondary caller. And so what was it like to play with him? Because obviously now he's sort of known as like a good fragger for an IGL and like as known as the God caller. So who was gla1ve back in Heroic when you met him?
As far as I remember, he took the long break when he was sort of like out of the scene for, I don't know how long it was, like a year or something. Then he came back into, I believe it was like the Copenhagen Wolves roster. And back then, I feel like his logic was that the team was not very good firepower-wise, because they still had a lot of like the 1.6 players. People remember probably like Freeze, those type of people. So I felt like, he wanted to still contribute with his firepower and his individual playing. So he didn't want an in-game lead back then. So yeah, but he was like a super awesome guy to play with. He's a very vocal player. He has a lot of authority. So when gla1ve says something, you really listen to it. Especially if you were a younger guy like me back then. So yeah, I have nothing but good to say about him. He was a really nice guy to play with. You always felt like he was in control. And I think a guy like Snappy, who was kind of new to CSGO back then as well, really felt the impact of having a guy like gla1ve on your team. He's obviously going to help you with secondary calling, like the decisions, just like managing the team in general. And then I think most importantly, he had a really good view of the game, both like tactically and like in terms of like the mid-rounding as well, right? So I think that was like his biggest strength.
Do you ever wonder, because obviously, if people don't know as well, it was actually a gamble when Astralis picked up gla1ve at this time because of his history. He wasn't an IGL. Basically, people don't realise, they just essentially, because they knew, like, we've sort of reached an impasse with Carrigan, it's not getting better. The point at the time was there wasn't any other people, unless you were going to go for MSL, basically, he was the only other legit person. It was going to have to be a gamble like MSL, Snappy, or in this case, they went with gla1ve because they thought maybe he can, like, recreate what he did in the past. So I almost feel like people don't realise, if Astralis had been amazing that year, maybe gla1ve just stays in this team. Maybe he's never even an IGL. Like, what do you think? What would history be like if that team just stayed together? Do you ever wonder?
Yeah, that's like a crazy thought, but I do remember when I think back. I remember when Astralis approached us and we realized that they were looking to like take gla1ve into the team. I always had the gut feeling that Astralis team was gonna do amazingly. Like, obviously, I didn't know it was gonna end up being as good as it was. But I just remember like getting a personality like him with the skill set that he has compared to what Carrigan had back then. I just felt like something special was in the making. And a funny story was that actually, like, I won't say who, but I was sort of like promised a little bit that they were going to do what they could to actually bring me into the Astralis lineup back then. And this was like all the way back when I think Cajun still played in the team possibly.
Okay.
Or was it just after him? But
I think it'd probably be when Kirby just joined, but yeah, sure.
Yeah, but it was basically like the really early Astralis days, right?
Right.
But for different reasons, it didn't end up happening. And then I obviously stayed with Heroic for a long time after that. And then, yeah, the rest is history, I guess.
Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.